Okay, so now the next activity we want to look at now is how to implement the CSS on our website now. Our site which we have created before is this now. So I want to preview the pages we have designed before. So I'm previewing my index page here in the live server. So because very soon now we are going to see how this page is going to be okay, good. So this is the page we already have before now. Okay, this is our page. We have a logo and we have the navigation pages. So all the functionality on this page is working. Then okay, we can move to the cow page. You can see our client page. You can see the contact page. You can also see the about us, and here is the contact page now. Okay, and also if I return back to the home page, you can see detail of some of these products now. At least the first product we have on the first row, we have a detail for them too. At the same time, when we click on add to cart, this will take us to the cart page for this particular product too. Okay, this is our cart page for the product. So and when you click on there's a checkout on the cart page that take us to the checkout form. So all these are the most important pages when we are building the e-commerce site. And finally, there's another button called pay that confirm the transaction is complete. All these pages where we are going to see how the CSS can be used to transform it one after the other. So now for that CSS, a CSS, so before I will start the CSS now, I'm going to make a duplicate of this particular web pages. Because right here on this our folder here now, so I'm going to make a copy of this folder so that I can make it to I can I'll make a duplicate of it so that the second folder is going to be for the CSS. I want to keep this one. This one is the pages we design without CSS. So I'll click on copy and I'll click on on the paste now. Okay, I will now rename the second page that is copy here to the one with the CSS now. So that will be underscore CSS. That is it. So this is the page we are going to be working on now. So I will return back to my Visual Studio environment here because that's what we are going to use. I will close this folder for the current one here now. So I can now open the new folder I just created now. I click on file. I will select open the folder. Okay, I will now go to the location where the file is saved to, which is here now. And here is the folder I just created now. I'll click on select. So the page is now open in the Visual Studio Code now. So when it open, there's something I need to do on that page again. I'll remove some unnecessary pages I have there. Like I don't need this layout here again, and I don't think I need this form again. All these pages are not important. Okay, the layout you can still leave it now, but I'm very sure we don't need this layout and these other layout pages here too. Okay, these are the pure HTML pages which I already created now. So returning back to my Visual Studio Code, this is where we are going to be editing everything we want to do now. But before we move further, let me now return to our slide here. So when we're talking about a CSS, a CSS is a way of transforming our website in order to make it more attractive and more interactive. And one of the important of the CSS from what we had is that a CSS simply mean cascading style sheet. And when you say cascading style sheet, it's a way of creating it's a way of changing the appearance of HTML element on our web pages. If you look at most of the HTML elements we have now, they are not looking attractive, or we can say they still look attractive for us now. Because if you look at this particular the first page here, you can see the new arrival here. This is what the HTML will return for us. But can we make this new arrival to become more attractive than what is here before? Yes, it's possible. Can we make these images we have here more attractive again? Yes, it's possible. Or can we even make all this navigation more attractive again? Yes, but even though the shares button we have here, can it make it more attractive? It is possible. In order to be able to achieve that, that is why there is need for the CSS. The CSA have been in existence since 1991, 1996. And what lead to the CSA is that what? Because we want to make a site to become more attractive. Because in those days, when they are creating an HTML, they use the attribute to change the appearance of HTML. That means you are going to write the code for the attribute inside your HTML tag. And that now make the what? The HTML tag to become more cumbersome and more difficult. The use of the CSS lead to the situation whereby that what? We can separate HTML separately, and we can also separate what? The element, we can also separate the what? The style we use to change it separately. That's why you say that when you are creating a web page, it is not good to be changing the appearance of the any HTML page by writing the what? The attribute inside it, because make it more difficult. So CSS come in a way to make sure what? The way the HTML element appear, you want to change the appearance of it. And when we are using a CSS, it is involved a set of standard rules. A CSS is made up of rules that can be used to change the what? Appearance of the HTML page. I can also use to be able to change the page layout. With your CSS, you can change the layout of your HTML page. You can also change the appearance of the HTML page. That is the two important thing why we use for CSS. You want to change the page layout, you want to change the appearance, CSS can do that. But CSS consists of a different type of the rules. It's very important. Understand this, because in any programming, there's a need for the rules. For you to make use of the CSS style, there are going to be a need for CSS rules. That rule is what everybody must follow. If you don't follow that rule, you'll never be able to use every style. So every style you want to define is going to be by using a standard rule. And when we use your CSS, you can make your page to be what? You can make the standard, you can make the style on your page to be consistent across all the web pages. For example now, on my CSS page, maybe I want to have what? The H header 2, and I want this header 2 on all the web pages to have the same layout. Or look at all this navigation now. All the navigation appear on several pages here. I want all the navigation to be consistent across all the pages. CSS can be used to do that easily. So guy, please just hello? Okay. So sorry now, so for us to understand more about this now, we are going to see how we can be able to use it to make sure that every information or app on our web page, it is more consistent. Now, already. Sorry for that. Now, for us to understand more about the CSS, we need to understand the center of the CSS. When we are writing a CSS, it's a CSS allow the creation of one or more rules that can be used to define a style. And this style is part of what we call the characteristic of the HTML. So when you are writing the CSS, you have to create a rules, and that rule is what we are using to define the style. So that is if I'm going to create the style, I have to define the rule for that style. Do you get it now? So for example now, if there's going to be a style we call if for example now I return back here, I say I want a a box. Okay, I want anchor tag. I want anchor tag to be I want anchor tag to be bold, red color, red color, red color, and and the and the box and be in a box, something like this. Do you get it now? So if I'm going to write a CSS to be able to achieve this, 1, 2, 3, I must write what you call a rules for that style. There must be a rule for the for the CSS style for this. And we are going to understand each of those rules because very important. So when you are going to define that rules, the CSS rules have a two part. The first part of the CSS rule is a selector, while the second part is the declaration. You get it now? So this particular selector of the CSS rule is referred to what? To the name you are giving to the rules. That is selector. What is the name? We call rules or rule name. Once you have defined that rule, you give that rule a name. That is selector. The second one is called declaration what? Block. A declaration block is where the rule is going to be specified, and that declaration block must be inside the brace like this. You get now? So we can now have what we call what? A declaration block here now. Do you get now? You can have declaration what? Rules here now, or you can have the rule for the style here now. Okay, you can have what? Style rule now here. So once you are saying style rules here, you can define different type of the style rule inside here, which mean in summary, when you are writing your CSS, you must have what you call selector here, and followed by what? The declaration what? Block like this. That is exactly what the CSS rules follow about. This is a syntax. For every CSS you want to write, you must define the selector, and you must now specify the rule inside here. This one now, in this case, can be rule 1. Apart from that, you can also have what? Rule 2. You can have rule 1, rule 2. You can also have what? Rule n. It depends on how many number of rules you want to do. It depends on the style you want to apply. For every style, there's a rule for it. Good. So in addition to that again now, let's look at how this rule can be defined. You get it now? So if I'm going to define a rule now, I can have my declaration, I can have my selector name. Maybe for example now, you know that I have an example here say I want to declare the CSS rule for anchor. We know anchor tag in HTML is A. So here now, I cannot define the rule like this by say A. So I cannot define the rule by say A become what? Selector now. This now become example. But here is what you call what? Syntax. Syntax is just the rule we have to follow. So the syntax is just like this here now. Do you get now? And syntax can have as many rules as possible, just like this now. That is it. So for this particular syntax, for the CSS rules, example now follow here now. Example is going to be what? Selector name is A, because I want to declare what? I want to declare the CSS rule for this anchor. Anchor tag is A, so I put A here now. That's my selector. Good. But the rule say that anchor tag should be bold. Do you get it now? So the first CSS rule to make anchor tag to be bold is formed like this. We call it font weight column bold. That's the first rule. Now the second rule here is color to be red and be in a box. I will leave that be in a box for now. Do you get it now? I'll say color to be red now. The second rule for color to be red is going to be color column red. These are the two rules now. So which means that each of these rules, do you get it now, is made up of two information. The first part of this rule is what you call CSS property, while the second one is the value. This is second rule again, that form of CSS property, which means that the CSS rules is divided into be two. Rules in CSS have two parts. Do you get it now? The first part of the rule in CSS is what you call CSS property. CSS property. That's the first part. And the second one is what you call value. For every CSS property, there must be a value. So when you are writing a rule in CSS, you have to specify the CSS property, you have to specify the value for that CSS property. And that is the example of what you just see here now. For this H3 we have here, the rule they have is just one rule. And that one rule have the property, which is a color, and the value is what? Is red. Do you get it now? So even though if I want to define the background color, which is another what? Rule again, I can just come down here and say what? Background what? Color, background, okay, background hyphen color. So all this rule must be spelled in a proper way. I can say background hyphen color. What color will be very good there now? I call it what? Maybe green now. Okay, that and semicolon. Yes, quick. It's not it's not working like that, because that's why that everything we have here, when they say CSS property, all these CSS property they already predefined. You cannot use your own name, so you must use the CSS property in a proper spelling and a proper way. Do you get it now? So what everybody must understand here later is that what you guys are going to go through a lot of CSS property, and you must use each of those CSS property. What you must learn in CSS for you to master CSS, what are the CSS property that are available? To tell you the truth, we have more than hundred of thousands of CSS property, and it's not compulsory for you to know all of them before you become good in it. So you only use the CSS property that relate to what you want to do, or you go and do the research on which of the CSS property do you need to achieve this and this and this. Are you getting it now? Because there are many of them. So you keep reading it in a book that this CSS property does this. But we are still going to discuss some of those CSS property which are going to be for different tasks. Like for example now, if you want to style your image, what are the CSS property you are going to need? If you want to style your text, what are CSS property you are going to need? Do you get it now? We'll discuss more about those ones, CSS property too. But this one are just the CSS property for what? For make text to be bold, and they make your text to be bold, make a text color to be red, and give the particular background color to what? To the text too. Do you get now? These are just the syntax. But for now, if you want to apply CSS to our HTML page, there are three ways CSS can be applied to the HTML page. The first way of applying CSS to the HTML page is to use inline style, while the second way is to use internal style, and the third is external style. Now, the inline style mean that you want to attach your CSS to a tag directly. You want the CSS to affect a single tag. You want to write the CSS rule for a tag. Then you are going to use what you call a style attribute. Okay, now let's look at the first example here now. So I'm going to create a new page now. I'm going to name that page inline so that I can actually see the difference between them. I'm saving the existing page as well as inline. I create a new page here, and I say inline underscore CSS dot HTML. Okay, dot HTML now. So now I'll copy the content of this client page here. I'll paste it inside that inline here. But I'll remove some information. All the layout I have here, I'm removing them completely. So that is it now. So that I can have a plain page now. So what I want to do now is I want to use like something like a header 2 or H1. We have okay, good. I want to use this message called H2 now. You can see H2 tag now. And this H2, I want to give you a title called Danjuma Cows Farm. That's the message. Do you get it now? So I want us to see what we call inline word style. So this message in this particular Danjuma here now, I want the message to appear about 2 or 3 times. Second time, third time, and fourth time now. So this particular H2 here, I turn this one to H1, and I also turn this one to H1 again. You get now? And also the second H2 here become H1, and also H1 now. So when I save this page, I want to preview it, call inline style here. Okay, so you can see how this page look like. There's H2, there's H1. So when we say inline style mean I want to apply the CSS to a particular tag, and the tag I want to apply the CSS to now, let's say this is the tag to differentiate it. Okay, this is the Danjuma cow farm. Okay, that's one. And I see Dangote cow farm too. And also have for Tinubu cow farm, and I have what Wike cow farm too. All these are different type of the cow farm. Assuming now that I want to apply CSS rule to only the Danjuma cow farm, that's what we call inline style. You know there are two H2 here. I have H2 for Danjuma. I also have H2 for Tinubu. So for me to apply the style to only the Danjuma here, I'll use the style attribute. And that rule is going to go like this. You say style equal to, what are the CSS rule now? The first CSS rule I want to apply is to make color to be what? Green. I can now say color column what? Green now here. That is it. So when I say color is green and I save this particular page, you will notice that what? Only the what? The Danjuma is now changed to green. Though Danjuma is H2, but Tinubu's is also what? H2. But since the rule I define is to change a single tag, that is why you see only the Danjuma is now turned to color red. That is the use of what we call inline word, inline style. Inline style can only affect a single word tag. In addition to this again, let me add another rule to move this particular one, this Danjuma, to the center of the page. That CSS rule is called what? Text word align. This is how we'll be learning each of the CSS word property now. I will say center now, and I also close it. You get it? I save it again. Can you see now? It's now moving here. Let me add another rule to increase the size of this particular Danjuma cow again, making the third rule now in this word. I will now say font word, font size is to increase the size of the text. I will say column, what value I want to do. Let me say 50 point pt and semicolon. You can see again here, and I save this page. Before I will save it, you can see the size of the word A2 now. Okay, once I save the page again, you can see that the A2 size now become bigger. You can see the Tinubu is H2 here. You can see Danjuma is A2 here now. But there's something you need to notice here. The appearance of this Danjuma has changed simply because we have used CSS to transform it from the default word style, which is A2. And that is exactly what we said when we started this class, that we use the CSS to change the appearance of HTML element. That is the first thing, that a CSS, which is cascading style sheet, is a collection of style that change the appearance of what? HTML on the web page. So automatically, this particular word HTML, which is Danjuma, is now changed completely, because it's more bigger than the default style, and that's what the CSS word rule does. And that CSS rule is only applied to its particular word tag, and that's exactly what you see here again. Do you get it now? So we can't apply all the CSS here now. But the problem now is, what about if I want all the word, all the H2 to have the same effect that the Danjuma have here? What can I do? Do I need to start copy this particular CSS inside every A2? No. That is why there is a need for second way of adding what? A CSS to our web page, which we now refer to as well as the internal word CSS. So the internal CSS is used to style an element of the same word type. If we know that word element appears several times on our page, and we want to give those particular elements the same style, we want to give them the same style, we can use the internal word style sheet. That's it. What is used when there's a need to style multiple occurrence of an element with the same word style. So if we are doing that again, we are going to make use of what we call what? A style word tag. You get it now? So for you to use a style tag must be inside the head word, head section of the HTML page. So to do that again, I'm going to create another page here now for that internal style. I will now save it as internal. I'm copying the content of the inline page here. I'm creating a new page here now. I call it what? Internal, okay, underscore what? CSS dot what? HTML. Okay. Now, I now paste the content here now. So before I do this, let me give a title to each of these page again. By say H1, I call this one internal CSS. Okay, internal CSS. That is it now. Okay, this internal CSS now. That's it. And this one now, so I will remove the CSS style inside there because I don't want the inline style here now. So this one I put here. I want to also put the word, the title in the inline here, so that I know that this is what the inline. Okay, this is going to be what? Inline CSS. Each time inline CSS. Okay, that is it now. This page have inline, this page have internal CSS. So in this internal CSS here now, what I want to do is I want all the H2. I'm adding another H2 again. I want all the H2 to have the same style, and this one is now calling what? Article. I want all the H2 to have the same style. So that means I have to create a CSS inside the head tag, because that CSS must be inside the wall, the head section. And this CSS will come like this by its called what? Style. When I define style, I define the attribute for relative to tell system that what we are using is style sheet. Style sheet, because there are different type of the CSS word. There are different type of the style sheet. After that, specify the type to let system know that the CSS I'm using here, I will say text CSS is the CSS. So this is the first rule I apply. This is how we define the CSS now. So the next thing now that I want to apply CSS to the A2. Remember our CSS rule we have here when you say you have to specify the selector and you have to specify the rules inside it. So now what will be our selector here is the H2 we want to apply the CSS to. So here now I will now put H2 here. Then I will open the declaration block for that H2 now. So the rule I want to use now is going to be every A2 should be underline. That's another CSS property. That one we call it text decoration. Text decoration. I'll choose underline. That is it. Another CSS rule which I want I want every A2, do you get now, to have a okay, I want the color of them to be okay. We already have one. Okay, now let me say this one first so that I can see how the internal affect all the A2. Can you see that all the A2 they are now underlined at once because I want them to have the same style. In addition to that again, I want all the A2 again. I want them to be center. I'll say text align center now. That is it. And I want to increase their size again. I say font size column maybe 40 now point. Do you get it now? That is it. And when I say this, you can now see the effect of it. Everything is now underline and center, and the size is also increased. Do you get it now? Another CSS I want us to look at here for this. These are another CSS rule here which I want us to apply to this one again. Like I said, each are the different rules. I want to create a border line around them. I will now give them border. Say border column 1 pixel. That's the size. Since I want to apply color, I say solid for the color. Which color am I using for the border? I say green. That means system go to define green color for the border. Once I say this, you can see that every H2 have a border line here. But in order to make this one to be completely transform, I can now say, okay, I want to define the background color for this A2. I can now say background color and I want green too again. That is it again. border color is green, background color is green. So moment I refresh, can you see again? That is it. You can see now. So if I want to add the space, yes, go on. Yes.